Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another ranked ladder game. This time around, we jump into Dry Arabia, as we have kauP in the orange facing off against Corvinus, formerly known as Szalami, who has the HRE under his command. Szalami is going to be on the left side of the map with the color purple, and to the right, we do have kauP playing as the orange. So English versus HRE, this is not a matchup that you commonly see on a map like Dry Arabia. If this was Hill and Dale, or if this was any other more defensive or campy map, I would say this is a legitimate matchup. English obviously have that early aggression potential, but they do have a great late game, very powerful and sustainable economy. Kind of the same can be said of the HRE, but they are obviously way less focused on feudal age aggression. But on an open map like this is not a super common matchup, simply because HRE, as we know, is a civilization that prefers to play a defensive game, to play an eco-focused game, and it really just starts to come online starting or beyond Castle Age. So it's going to be interesting to see how Corvinus is going to play this one. But one of the things that you will always have to respect when facing the English is their ability to aggress you in feudal. So one of the things I really cannot see working out for Corvinus would be just rushing Castle Age, playing into men-at-arms or knights. When you're up against the HRE as the English, you know that that's a legitimate possibility, so you're going to play aggressive, try to deny resources. Now, speaking of resources, one of the first things that you can notice is that both of the forests are up on the front for Corvinus. This can help when it comes to defending your base, although this section is still wide open to the south. To the north, it's also a pretty significant opening. But the bigger issue here for Corvinus is that he could easily be denied of all wood. Now, obviously HRE is not super reliant on wood, but if you are completely denied of it, it's going to be difficult to get production buildings going, let's say, starting in Castle Age. And if that's the case, you will struggle to put those resources that you gather with your strong economy onto the field. So that's one of the things that kauP can consider with this map layout. Even if Szalami considers rushing a Castle Age into knights or something a realistic option, denying the wood, and thereby denying the ability to make multiple production buildings, could be a great way to punish a defensively focused or just a low military Corvinus here. On the other side, kauP is going to play around the council hall. No surprise in that department. Even if you don't want to go heavy on the longbows, it's always good to have the option to go for them. And obviously, it makes your opponent respect you. You have the council hall, they have to respect your ability to get some longbows on the field and potentially chip away with some damage in your eco. kauP went for an early mill, by the way. He didn't add a single farm, but he could go for wheelbarrow very soon. You see he's piling up the gold for that. And given that he's heavy on the lumberjacking, I could see him adding a couple of farms early on. He doesn't seem to have a lot of sheep to work with. You see, only a handful of carcasses are available. And it looks like we do have a bit of a dance here with the hunts. Not something that you commonly see in a matchup that doesn't feature Rus, but it seems like kauP just wanted to disperse. Oh, he's getting shot at by the TC. That could have been ugly. His scout is being trailed by so many sheep. Ran into the TC of Corvinus here. Losing all of these would have been a disaster. You see, he's already adding farms. He doesn't have a lot of sheep. But yeah, anyway, going back to all these deer carcasses, he kind of wanted to spread them out, make it more difficult for Corvinus to get a good mill on them. And he did a solid job with that, but Corvinus prevented a complete disaster over here when it comes to spreading out the deer. Very heavy on the lumberjacking is Corvinus. He already collected stone. I wasn't paying attention to that. I was looking at the pace of kauP, but you see, Corvinus went all the way up to 450 stone. This is, by the way, a lovely Aachen Chapel spot. It's right on the stone, it's right on the wood, and I don't think that kauP has scouted this. We have seen him focusing around this area, trying to spread out the deer. I don't think he actually spotted the stone having been mined. And this is a critical thing. If he doesn't know about the stone being taken, he might not anticipate a second TC just yet. He will soon find out, I have no doubts about that, but right now, it's very possible that Corvinus is building this second town center without kauP knowing about it. kauP is back at home with the deer, or with the sheep actually. Fun fact, the sheep still has this random trade button out there, as well as the unknown activation. Legacy from the very early version of the game. We still don't know how this came to be, but this bug, feature, whatever you want to call it, it's still there. kauP is going to go heavy on the eco, double broad axe horticulture on the way. On the other side, Corvinus is heavy on the lumberjacking, goes for a range to start with. Now, this is not a common way to play HRE, but I think it's an underrated one. So, if there's any type of unit that you do not want to go into with the HRE, it's the archer line, as kauP does spot the second TC now. The issue with the HRE archers is that you do not get any bonuses for them. So the only legitimate reason to make them is basically the fact that you have a great economy, so you can make a lot of them. Now, the thing I like here for Corvinus with the archers is that especially if you have mass archers, you can beat everything that kauP throws at you in feudal. If you went for horsemen, taking direct battles would be a lot more difficult. You would have to play the game in a very different way. You would have to cut off reinforcements, you would have to raid. But if, let's say, kauP positions a couple of spearmen inside his eco, it would be difficult for you to raid him. So here for Corvinus, the idea is to play into a strong eco and just use mass archers, play raw numbers game to beat this aggression, and then leverage the extra eco that he's building up right now. Tower now coming up here for kauP. Corvinus should know about this. Whoops. I think I need to check my hotkeys. Something is odd with my Fog of War hotkey. Oh, I found it. Anyway, this is what Corvinus sees. He doesn't know about the tower, but he should know it's coming. This is one of those cases where he doesn't have visual confirmation, but in a scenario like this, it's almost guaranteed that there will be a tower coming up. Love to see kauP pulling 2 villagers for this. In Corvinus' position, if he sees a tower coming up, his #1 priority is to snipe the villager that's building it. He needs to prevent that tower from coming up, and he would be willing to sacrifice some archers to snipe the single villager building it. Pulling 2 villagers means that it's a lot more difficult to accomplish, and it's much more likely for kauP to be able to finish this tower. We have some horsemen coming out as well from Corvinus. Stables all the way to the back over here, hidden from the eyes of kauP. He has seen a single horseman out there, so he knows that it's there, but he doesn't know the amount of horsemen that Corvinus has just yet. Tower is complete. Archers will garrison inside. Now, if Corvinus sees these villagers with the scout, and this is what he wants to do. Okay, this is very clever. When he spots these villagers, the tower can shoot over the forest, meaning that the villagers can be killed. He needs to focus them down. The first volley targeted the lumber camp, which meant that he didn't kill any of the vills. But this is one of the more intriguing features of the game. It's what we call a shared line of sight in a way. The idea is that right now, Corvinus cannot shoot anything that he doesn't see. He sees the tower, but that's all. He doesn't see any units nearby. But if another unit provides line of sight, like a scout, he can finally shoot over the forest. You see, scout will move in. So from now on, the tower can pretty much shoot anything that's within range, and it's over the forest. If this longbow comes over here, for instance, this would be shot at. This is what Corvinus tried to do. He tried to give line of sight to the tower using the scout to snipe the villagers. Upgrades are coming in large quantities, actually, for Corvinus. He's got the ranged attack upgrade, ranged defense now on the way as well. He's expanding towards the hunt, also pulling a prelate. This is a risky thing to do. He's going to lose his scout as well. It will make it much more difficult to keep track of all these longbows. But for now, the hunt is safe. He desperately needs that food, by the way. He's at 100 food per minute. And for a player making mass archers and horsemen, that's a pretty problematic scenario. On the other side, kauP is still using all the sheep that he collected. Has a couple of farms as well. But he has gotten a lot of eco upgrades as well. He's got wheelbarrow, he's got fertilization. He's got the lumberjacking upgrade as well, double products that is. So when it comes to the ecos, this is one of those rare instances where kauP's eco might actually be slightly stronger than what Szalami has. It's a little tricky because Corvinus is mining a lot of gold as well, but that's not something that he can use to many things right now. A couple of upgrades it will be useful for, as the longbows will just bypass the TC over here. A lot of damage is being done here by the tower and the town center fire, but some of that is soaked up by the men-at-arms, and kauP is just out here for blood. He's seeking villagers on food, it seems. Sees that there is no villager underneath the town center, no villagers on the berries. Needs to realize that the hunters are to the south, and he's going exactly towards the hunters. I think he spotted the prelate as well. Benefit of having this one scout in the group, providing line of sight. Will pick the villagers, will pick the prelate. And I think spotting the mill also means that he knows about these villagers just fleeing to the south. Through the fog of war, I think he also saw the deer moving, so he may know about these villagers being here. Yeah, I think he knows. He has to know. Those villagers have to flee somewhere, and there is basically one place or one direction towards which they can go. It's this corner. And because kauP has his scout, he's going to have an easy time finding this. You see, his longbows don't have a terrific line of sight, as we do have this cleanup coming in here from Corvinus. All these units converging to the south means that this tower is undefended. Corvinus can clean this up. And look at Corvinus dropping a tower in the very southernmost corner of this map and then just leaving it there. Oh my lord. We have a lot of spears over here, plus a couple of men-at-arms as well. Corvinus trying his best to just wall in these villagers, but longbows do arrive. He's trying to buy time as best as he can, but all the villager lead that he has had will disappear in a moment. Villagers will be cleaned up, prelates will be killed as well. And don't forget, these villagers have been idled for a long, long time. So, despite the fact that he had the villager lead for a while, these villagers were a non-factor for quite a time. Good news for him is that he's got a formidable force moving towards the base of kauP, and he still has the villager lead. If he can get some villager picks over here, he will retain that eco lead that he built. Villagers now moving towards this mill. This is a crazy idea by Corvinus. I don't like this. kauP has clear vision on this. He might be distracted by the aggression coming his way, but if he ever sees this, he's just going to scramble here because he knows that this is just a smorgasbord for slaughter. Defensive tower is now built on the wood line. kauP could use a tower either here on the gold, this would be a lovely spot, or somewhere here on the farms. Right now, these villagers are more than exposed. And it looks like kauP isn't really reacting to all these villagers being here. That's such a missed opportunity, you feel. A couple of villagers will be picked. Corvinus still has the eco lead. He lost 19 vills, but he's retaliating by killing 5. And don't forget, he has had 2 TCs for a while. Okay, here come the men-at-arms and the longbows. You want to close distance before firing. Oh, this is a blunder by kauP. He moved in with the longbows, didn't close the distance before firing. So Corvinus got the notification a lot sooner than he should have had. Allows him to get away with a lot more vills. If kauP gets a little closer before firing, he probably gets away with 5 more villager picks. Obviously, it's easier said than done, but when you look at the principle of raiding like this with ranged units, you always first want to close distance and only after fire. Still a lot of idle time on Corvinus' eco. He's got 25 out of his 36 vills idled. Newly made archers are also being picked off. Horsemen now coming in, and look at this tower defense here by kauP. His own eco is also being heavily idled here. A lot of villagers will be caught in the crossfire. He's lost 7 vills in total. Make it 8, make it possibly 9, 10. But this army is getting cleaned up. kauP is sitting at 1 villager working. What a madness. This game is just getting so chaotic. kauP's entire eco was idled. On the other side, we have 5 prelates from Corvinus moving all the way up there, fleeing with a couple of villagers and a couple of archers escorting them. kauP is out there for blood. He's trying to do as much eco damage as he can, but back at home he's also suffering a couple of casualties. If he didn't lose these 10 vills, his position in this game would be great. But one of the things that you really you really got to give credit for Corvinus is being able to retaliate. He isn't doing as much damage as kauP is doing to him, but he's on 2 TCs. So if Corvinus just does a fraction of the damage that he's suffering from, that's going to be enough to propel him to a better and better position. And this is actually a good distraction, by the way. Just a bunch of prelates running around. Obviously, when you're Corvinus, you do not want to lose all these prelates. I think he just wants to link up with this army, use these guys for combat healing. But this is a good distraction. These prelates aren't really doing anything other than running around. So as long as the units of kauP are chasing those, they aren't really pressuring the eco. Now, longbows will swing back south, and once again, Corvinus will be forced to flee. Again, villagers are being idled on this side. On the other side, looks like Corvinus is now pulling back his army, and this is where it gets dicey for him. Villager count is now getting very close. Army here from Corvinus will be cleaned up. Longbows will also focus down the horsemen. A lot of idle time for Corvinus. And when you look at kaup's base, he has stabilized. He's got long-term sustainability with the farms. His lumberjacks are secured by towers. Whereas on the other side, Corvinus is just running for his life. His food eco has been denied from time and time again. And he's just losing way too many vills. For the first time in this game, Corvinus will have a lower villager count than what kauP has. And you see, Corvinus will just step out of this one. He tried to play into 2 TCs, and for a while, it worked pretty well. I must say, given the amount of pressure that he was under, this was a good game played by Corvinus. kauP did what he had to. He played a very standard English play, maybe focused a little bit more on the eco than you commonly see from English players going heavy into the longbow and spear composition. But at the end of the day, the key difference was that kauP could always chip away with more damage than Corvinus could. Corvinus did the best to make sure that kauP cannot just get away with a fully intact eco. And there were times where he shut down the entire eco of kauP. But at the end of the day, having that defensive bonus for the English, being able to place defensive towers, the network of castles bonus, being able to play with a very confined and tight base using the farms, made it much easier for kauP to defend his eco than what the scenario was for Szalami, who really struggled to keep those villagers on food alive.